The transport lift shuddered to a halt between the 42nd and 43rd floors of the Galactic Council Education Complex. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing everything in a dim amber glow. Inside the cramped space, 6 Vrexian cubs immediately began to whimper and pace in tight circles. Sarah Chen sighed and pressed the emergency call button. A mechanical voice responded in standard galactic common. Technical difficulties detected. Maintenance has been notified. Estimated repair time 45 minutes. Please remain calm. 45 minutes. Sarah glanced at the cubs, their gray furred bodies already trembling with rising panic. They were no older than 7 standard years, their large black eyes growing wider with each passing second. The Vrexian teacher who was supposed to accompany them had stayed behind on the 42nd floor, sending them ahead while she gathered the rest of her class. Now these 6 were trapped with only Sarah, a human exchange teacher, for company. The largest cub, a male with a white patch on his chest, began to keen. It was a high-pitched sound that made Sarah's teeth ache. The others quickly joined in, their collective distress creating a symphony of fear that echoed in the metal box. "Hey, it's okay," Sarah said softly, crouching down to their level. The cubs pressed themselves against the far wall, their ears flat against their skulls. Their instincts were screaming at them. Trapped space, no escape route, predator nearby. Everything their species had evolved to fear. Sarah knew the Vrexian history. They were prey animals on their homeworld, hunted by apex predators until they developed enough intelligence to build walls and weapons. Even now, thousands of years after leaving their planet, the instincts remained strong. Enclosed spaces triggered panic. The cubs were minutes away from a full terror response, which could injure them or worse. She couldn't reach the teacher through the lift's dead communications system. She couldn't force the doors open. All she could do was try to keep them calm until help arrived. Sarah slowly lowered herself to the floor and crossed her legs, settling into a comfortable position. She placed her hands on her knees, palms up, and let her shoulders relax. Her breathing slowed deliberately, each inhale and exhale deep and measured. The cubs continued their distressed calls, but one of them, a small female, paused to look at Sarah. Her nose twitched, processing this strange behavior. "It's all right," Sarah repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't move toward them or make any sudden gestures. She simply sat, present and calm, like a stone in a rushing stream. Another cub stopped keening, then another, their large eyes fixed on the human woman sitting cross-legged in the center of the lift. She wasn't pacing. She wasn't showing any signs of panic. Her heartbeat, which their sensitive hearing could detect, was slow and steady. The largest cub took a tentative step forward. Sarah remained still, her gaze soft and unfocused, not making direct eye contact that might be interpreted as a threat. She hummed quietly, a simple melody her grandmother used to sing when Sarah was small and scared of thunderstorms. The white-chested cub moved closer. His nose worked overtime, analyzing Sarah's scent. Humans smelled different from every other species in the galaxy. Not unpleasant, but unique. A blend of salt and warmth, and something else the galactic scientists couldn't quite identify. They called it persistence molecules, because it seemed to linger everywhere humans went. Sarah kept humming. The melody was ancient, passed down through generations of humans who had soothed frightened children in the dark. She didn't know the original words anymore. The tune was enough. The cub sat down 3 feet away from her. The others watched, their panic slowly ebbing as they observed their packmate's bravery. The small female crept forward next, her body low to the ground, ready to spring away if needed. "That's right," Sarah murmured. "Nothing to be afraid of. We're just waiting. The adults will get us out soon." The second cub sat down beside the first. Sarah noticed their breathing beginning to synchronize with hers. It was something she'd read about in human psychology classes, but never thought applied cross-species. Apparently, it did. One by one, the remaining cubs approached. They formed a small semicircle around Sarah, their initial terror gradually replaced by curiosity and a strange sense of security. The largest cub leaned forward and sniffed Sarah's knee. She didn't react, continuing her gentle humming. Then something remarkable happened. The white-chested cub lay down, pressing his belly to the cool metal floor. His head rested on his paws, and his eyes, while still watchful, no longer showed signs of panic. The other cubs followed his example. Within minutes, all 6 of them were lying down, creating a small, furry ring around the seated human. Their breathing deepened. The emergency lights cast dancing shadows on the walls, but the cubs no longer flinched at the movement. Sarah continued to sit cross-legged, her presence a calm anchor in their storm of fear. She understood something instinctively, that the Vrexian adults struggled to teach their young. Sometimes survival wasn't about running or fighting. Sometimes it was about accepting the situation and conserving energy until circumstances changed. Humans had evolved differently from the Vrexians. They weren't prey animals. They were persistent hunters, capable of tracking prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. But they were also social creatures who understood the power of calm presence. Human children responded to stillness and steady breathing. Apparently, so did Vrexian cubs. The smallest cub inched closer until her head rested against Sarah's ankle. The human woman slowly, carefully, lowered one hand and gently stroked the soft fur behind the cub's ear. The cub's eyes closed, and a rumbling sound emerged from her chest. Not quite a purr, but close enough. Time passed. The lift remained stuck, but the panic had evaporated completely. The cubs dozed, occasionally opening one eye to check that Sarah was still there, still calm, still present. She was their proof that everything would be okay. Sarah's legs began to cramp, but she didn't move. These cubs needed her stillness more than she needed comfort. She'd learned patience during her years teaching in various systems across the galaxy. Children, regardless of species, often needed adults to show them how to navigate difficult emotions. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 30 minutes, the lift jerked and hummed back to life. The cubs' ears perked up, but they didn't leap to their feet in panic. They simply raised their heads, watching Sarah for cues on how to respond. "See?" Sarah said softly. "I told you the adults would fix it." The lift began to descend slowly, heading back to the 42nd floor where the Vrexian teacher waited. As the doors opened, revealing a crowd of anxious adults, the cubs stood up and calmly walked out. The teacher gasped, rushing forward to check on her students. "They're fine," Sarah said, unfolding her stiff legs and slowly standing. "Just a little scared at first." The Vrexian teacher stared at her cubs. Then at Sarah, then back at her cubs. "How did you—" "They should have been in full panic mode. The trauma counselors are standing by, but they're completely calm." Sarah shrugged. "I just sat with them. Let them know they weren't alone." The teacher's nose twitched rapidly, a sign of deep thought in her species. "The human sat cross-legged," she murmured to her colleague. "The cubs lay down around her. This shouldn't be possible. We're trained for years to handle panic responses. You just sat?" "Sometimes that's all anyone needs," Sarah replied. "Someone to stay calm when they can't." The white-chested cub looked back at Sarah before leaving with his teacher. His tail wagged once, a gesture of gratitude that transcended species barriers. The small female who'd rested against Sarah's ankle chirped softly before following her packmates. Later that evening, Sarah would learn that the incident had been recorded by the lift's internal cameras. The footage would be studied by Vrexian psychologists and human anthropologists alike. They'd debate what exactly happened in that stalled lift. Some would argue it was Sarah's scent. Others would claim it was her heartbeat or the specific frequency of her humming. But Sarah knew the truth was simpler than any scientific explanation. She'd done what humans had been doing for hundreds of thousands of years. She'd stayed present with those who were afraid. She'd shown them through her own calm that fear didn't have to control them. She'd given them permission to rest instead of panic. The galaxy was full of species more technologically advanced than humans. There were races with superior strength, greater intelligence, longer lifespans. But humans had something else. They had the ability to sit cross-legged in a broken lift and convince 6 terrified cubs that everything would be okay. Sometimes that was enough to change everything.